Well, talking of losing jobs, UK unemployment rose to 3.7% from 3.5% in the 3 months leading up to November. That's according to the latest figures from the Office for National Statistics. Latest official numbers on pay also published, with wage packets going up, but of course nowhere near the rate of inflation. Well, joining us now, our economics and business editor Liam Halligan with On the Money. So unemployment up, not too much. Wages up, but not too much. Good, bad or indifferent?
Lots of numbers flying about here today. And welcome back, Mark, by the way.
Thank you very much, yes, to Broken Britain.
We've actually seen in the months from September to November, I can put them up on a graphic here, we've seen a huge pay rise with pay across the economy up 6.4%. And that's the biggest increase in that monthly period since 2001. And if we can break that down with the next graphic, private sector pay during that period, September to November, that was up 7.1%, Mark. And public sector pay was up 3.3%. So private sector pay is going up more than public sector pay. That will surely feed into these wage negotiations. But having said that, public sector pay, in pounds and pence, is still higher on average than public sector pay. And a lot of people in the private sector would say, and public sector people get better pensions, more sick leave, more flexibility, and so on. But here's the real headline for me. The next graphic, Mark, pay after inflation across the economy, when you include that inflation during that period, September to November, the rise in the cost of living, what we call real terms pay after pay rises, down by 3.4%, and that's the biggest fall since 2009. So what we have here, Mark, and it's quite difficult to get your head around it, so I'll say it again, we have the biggest increase in actual pay in pounds and pence since 2001 over the last months of last year, but we've had the biggest fall in post-inflation pay. This is what inflation does. When the cost of living is rising, these hefty pay rises don't actually add up to pay rises.
And that's the conundrum, of course, given the situation with the government and the unions at the moment. The government's saying, look, in cash terms, we can't afford this. The union's saying, well, hold on, looking at the pay packets and what it means when you get home and work in what cost of living crisis is doing. I mean, as left the latest, of course, I mean, train operating companies saying, look, we're offering something that's going to give them £5,000 a year more. But as they say, well, it doesn't meet 10.7% inflation rate. We're looking at that as basically what we need. So we've still got this conundrum. What does the government do? Does it stay and stick and say, look, let's just see what inflation is going to be in the spring and summer? Or do they try and give one-off payments, maybe, as they've talked about with the nurses?
A lot of employers are using one-off payments because a one-off payment feels good now. It's like a bonus. But you don't have to then pay it every single year.
With the national insurance added in and everything.
Going forward, that's right. I think what else is worth saying here, Mark, is that tomorrow we've got the next inflation number coming out. Now, you'll remember that inflation fell from its 41-year high in October. It was 11.1%. In November, it fell to 10.7%. Tomorrow, I'll be reporting on GBNews on the breakfast show from 7 a.m. About the inflation number for December. And if that inflation number is markedly lower than 10.7%, the government will say, even though real wages at the moment are falling because of inflation, the government will say, look, guys, to the trade unions, inflation's coming down a lot. Inflation, as Rishi Sunak has said, they will say, is going to halve by the end of the year. So if we're offering you a 6% rise this year and maybe a 5% rise next year, these are real terms post-inflation pay increases. And so these headline macroeconomic numbers take on huge political significance to try and break these strikes.
And your quick, educated guess on that figure tomorrow, because, I mean, we've got the dollar higher against the pound, so fuel, for instance, is slightly cheaper, and those costs...
You mean the pound is higher against the dollar?
Yeah, so buying fuel effectively, it becomes...
So the pound has recovered quite a lot, as you rightly say. That means to import fuel is cheaper, not least because fuel is priced in dollars. So I wrote at the weekend that I actually think inflation will start to fall quite quickly now throughout this year. I do think the cost of living squeeze is very, very real, and it's not like prices are going to come down, so no one's going to suddenly feel richer. But I do at least think the rate of increase in prices is going to abate quite soon. So I would expect tomorrow's December inflation number to be lower than the November inflation number. So lower.
Single figures?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I wouldn't be surprised if it's certainly lower than 10.7%. And I don't think Rishi Sunak's going to have any problem meeting his end-of-year pledge to have inflation half of where it was when he gave that pledge in early January. So this is about 5%.
Right, and this is the important thing, because it buys the government some room in terms of negotiations with the union, and the unions may well have to reconsider the negotiating stance.
It allows the government to paint the unions in the face of the court of public opinion, which is what is all important, and indeed the government can paint the Labour Party as being unreasonable if they're not accepting reasonable pay demands. I mean, we mentioned ASLEF earlier, right? The ASLEF drivers have just voted to reject a pay offer of 8%. Right. And so we know there are going to be strikes now next month.